Hello and welcome to another Nolan Rossi podcast. I'm excited that you're here. It is week 2 of this body transformation, this 90-day opportunity to have a new relationship with my body. And you're probably already noticing this language shift that I'm using because I've needed a different way into this thing. The space of wellness, of food, of diets and working out. I stayed away from it for a long time because the communication, the language, the silos that controlled these spaces or influenced how they operated, they didn't resonate with me at that time. And I realized so much of it has to do with the language that shapes the concepts and creates the environments. And that creates a particular feeling inside your body. And so I had to come at this just a different way. We're not hustling more or creating more discipline. I'm coming at this with more awareness, asking myself, asking my body, what does it need? What could this be? I'm creating some goals and considering what is the way that feels best to achieve those goals. We're not following someone else's plan or prescription or what worked for them, although we look around and we take in the information and other people's experience and successes, and we make notes. Okay, that sounds resonant to me. That could work for me. I could incorporate that. But we're fostering a new awareness and understanding in here about what works for this body at this particular place and time. Yeah, so it's quite a different shift from where I've been in the past, where I've just ordered a program, showed up to that class, did what that person told me to, because that's just the way it is. I'm in this body transformation. I have established what my goals are, what I want to be doing. And then whenever you have a goal, you have to ask yourself, well, what's the next step in achieving that goal? And I have 3 main areas. And these 3 areas are how I nourish, how I grow, and how I move. Okay, so let's get into how I nourish. But first, we're going to need just a little bit of history for context, because for most of human history, the way that we related to food was dependent on many other things. Things like the seasons, the condition of the soil, things like famine, and your proximity to particular foods. Things like hunting and gathering. And is there enough for the entire tribe or the entire family? And that is a completely different relationship than what we have here today. Because I can sit down on my couch and with an app on my phone, I can have someone deliver any cuisine from around the entire world at my doorstep. We are living like kings, and we don't even realize it. And this is a unique moment in human history because this has not happened ever before. And with this comes a different density to the energy that we're consuming. And as a result, we just are eating more while moving less. Because if humans no longer have to move with the seasons or move where the food is, there's not scarcity because of a famine or because we just didn't grow enough food this year for the entire tribe, well, then we can just consume more energy. And so it's no surprise that our relationship to food is more complicated, that more than any other time in recorded human history, more of us are obese or just overweight or have chronic conditions. In many ways, it's like humans have not adapted yet to our ability to unlimited energy at every turn. And food is many things to us. It's energy, it's pleasure, it's sustaining, it's entertainment, and it's fuel. And I'm choosing to shift my relationship to food because I have a long history of being a foodie, of loving to experience culture and people through cuisine. And that is a beautiful thing. But in order to achieve my goals, I have to dial over just a few clicks and really focus this intention to relate to food as nourishment. How does what I consume give me the energy that I need while also nourishing my body and giving me the micronutrients and the macronutrients that sustain me and that help me achieve my goals? Now, you might already be asking, what is a macronutrient versus what is a micronutrient? But first, before we dive into that, I just want to talk about food as energy. And humans have designed this language that we know as calories. Now, the concept of a calorie is really just made up by humans. It's a measuring device that we invented. And if you get into the history of it, it includes experiments like weighing food before and after it goes through someone's digestive system, and what happens when you apply heat to actually burn off all the energy in a given food. These are actually the processes that are used to understand calories and actually get those labels on the back of food that actually have the calorie description on it. But it's important to know that even those labels are allowed a certain degree of accuracy. So when you see that that box of cereal is 100 calories for a half a cup, there's actually some variance into what that actually might mean in your body when you consume it. And this is why I will always go back to you trying and testing and experimenting these things with your body. Because we can talk about averages, but your experience will always be true for your body. Okay, now let's talk about the difference between macronutrients and micronutrients. Micronutrients are the vitamins, the minerals that your body needs. These all play critical roles in your body in energy production and immune function and things like bone health. And so making sure that you have a healthy level of micronutrients is important. And then there are the macronutrients. These are the three types of food that are the building block for so many bodily functions. You have carbohydrates, which is your body's main fuel source. And then you have proteins, which are critical for repairing and building things like muscle and organs and tissue. And then you have fats, which provide you energy, help your body absorb certain vitamins and minerals, and then supports cell function and hormones. Now, how I nourish to support my goal, it means a few things, because I'm trying to lose body fat while maintaining as healthy of a metabolic condition in my body as possible. I also want to maintain or even grow muscle in this process. And so how I decide to nourish my body is a key part of that. Because if I want to lose body fat, then what it means is I need to use more energy than I'm taking in. Because the way the body works, it has this beautiful process of storing energy in your fat cells so that you can use that when needed. Remember, there was a time when we were hunters or gatherers, or we moved with the season. There was times when we didn't have food plentiful. And it's a remarkable technology to be able to store energy for later use when food might be scarce or times might be tough. But if I want to reduce the fat that my body is holding on, then I have to consume less energy. And this is what's called a calorie deficit. And you can put yourself in a calorie deficit in a combination of two different ways, where you are eating less energy than your body needs, and you might expend more energy, right? This could be working out or doing a cardio type activity. I'm going to be using both in my strategy for this 90 days. But right now, we're just going to talk about what it means to be in a calorie deficit. Okay, the first time I tried to put myself in a calorie deficit, it was the most amazing embodied experience, because before, all I had ever done was generally worked more or eaten less or done a combination of two, but I didn't know what was going on. It was like this mystery process that I had no like body connection to or even mental connection. And the reason why an approach like this was always a mystery to me, maybe a bit challenging and also disheartening, was that your body is really, really smart. Your body's always trying to be as efficient as possible. And so if I decided that I was going to start running 30 minutes every day without the awareness of looking at what I'm eating, my body knows what the current norm is. And it sends a signal, hey, we've just used a lot of energy. We want to maintain what the status quo is right now. And so my hunger cues would go up, and I would, without even thinking, consume more food. And so a week, 2 weeks into me incorporating a new activity like running 30 minutes of a day wouldn't seem to change. I might become a better runner at the end of those 2 weeks, which is a great thing if your goal is to be a better runner. But if my goal is to shed some body fat, then without understanding this concept of a calorie deficit, of energy input and output, my activities and my actions are not connecting to my goals. So know that whenever you are making a shift, or you're relating to your body differently, when you want to make a change, your body is very smart. It cares for you, and it's always trying to even things out. And this is why the discipline, the hard work, the becoming a master of your body and whipping it into shape, it doesn't seem to acknowledge or respect this knowing, this technology in my body that I have that's always trying to even things out and be as efficient as possible. So please keep that in mind. Whenever I'm talking about these things, no matter what area it is, or perhaps when you're testing this out, your body's always trying to find this balance. Okay, back to the calorie deficit. Like I said, the first time I tried this, it was like, oh, this is how it works. This is how my body works. And I'll give you the simple formula. Whether or not you want to make a change or not, or you're just curious how your body works, the way to test a calorie deficit is very simple. Now, you're going to need two tools to figure this out, and that's going to be a bathroom scale and a food scale. All you need to do is weigh yourself for 1 week straight every morning. Don't change anything about the way that you eat. You're just collecting data. What do you weigh every morning? Write it down. At the end of that week, divide it by 7. Get the average of your weight for that week. Now, week 2 is where you're going to need to put some attention and concentration. And this is where the food scale is going to come in. Because for the next week, you're going to need to set your calories and stay within that range every single day. Every morning, you will weigh yourself in the same way. And if you're very careful about tracking everything that you eat and logging it so that you are consuming the same amount of calories every single day, then at the end of that week, you can compare the two. If the averages of those 2 weeks are the same, then you've probably maintained, and that is your maintenance calories. If you have added weight, then you are in a calorie surplus. You consumed more energy than you used. And if you lost weight, well, then you're in a calorie deficit because you used more energy than you consumed. Okay, so now you may be wondering, well, how do I know what a calorie deficit is for me? There's a few ways you can do this. It's pretty simple. If you just go on the internet and search for a TDEE calculator, which stands for Total Daily Energy Expenditure. This is going to take things like your age and weight, your activity level, and it will give you a calculation on where to start. The other way that you can do it is a simple calculation. Let's say that you want to lose 5 pounds. Take that goal weight and multiply it anywhere between 0.11 and 0.13. And this is another way to find a starting point for a calorie deficit. Now, this is just a starting point. The only way to know if this number is accurate for you and your body is to do what I said before. You're going to have to learn how to track your macros. And this is where a food scale comes in handy, and also downloading an app on your phone like MyFitnessPal or NutritionX. These are apps that have a huge catalog of foods, from grocery stores to restaurants. So just about anything that you decide to eat can be found in these apps. Now, one note about restaurant food is that this area is really tricky, and I highly suggest you avoid restaurant food because there's really no way to ensure that the cooks at Applebee's are using the same amount of oil or butter that they used in the test kitchen when they set those nutritional guidelines. Now, prepackaged foods like frozen meals in the freezer section at your grocery store or snack bars, these can be understood to be a lot more accurate. So you can utilize these in these phases. Now, if you decide to do this process and every day you're weighing out what 1 cup of rice is or a tablespoon of peanut butter is, you're going to discover a lot of things about the way you eat. I'll never forget the first time that I took a tablespoon of peanut butter and actually weighed it, and I realized how vastly different a tablespoon was versus what the grams of peanut butter actually were. It started to unlock this world for me where I understood how just an extra slice of pizza or a little bit extra oil can all of a sudden add 100 to 500 calories that I'm consuming every day. This is another 500 energy units that my body does not need. And because I don't need it, it's getting stored as fat. Now, if you do this and you successfully drop a half pound in that test period, you may go, this is great. I can do this. And why not increase the deficit even further? Well, there is a limit to how few calories you can eat before your body's balancing effect that I had talked about early really comes into play. And your body will send all sorts of feedback information. I have experienced this firsthand. I mean, doing a 3-day water fast where you are consuming no energy puts you in the most extreme version of this feeling. But even doing a moderate calorie deficit over a long period of time creates stresses on everything from the central nervous system to the actual muscles in our body. And there's a way that the body will respond. And so one of the best ways to approach this process is actually by making the smallest moves possible to affect a change. This is sometimes referred to as titrating. Most of us don't need to make giant steps to make changes. And often when you make a giant change out of nowhere, the body will respond. And this is where things like the yo-yo effect or the spring back effect can happen. So I always recommend small changes to start. Let those sink in before you try to make another adjustment. Now, I want to bring this idea of being in deficit back to how I nourish, because it's not simply about eating less energy units. It is about the type and the quality of those energy units. And if you enjoy those energy units, because if you want to be doing this for a long time, it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be a plan and a way that you actually find some pleasure in. And so one of the things you're going to have to explore and understand is not only food and how it relates to calories, these energy units, but also the macronutrients. Because how your meals are split up into those three pillars of carbs, fats, and proteins have a very profound effect on how you feel day to day, and also how to support your goals. Because when you are in a calorie deficit, when you're consuming less energy than your body needs, your body is going to start to grab energy from those fat cells. But it will also take energy from your muscle. And I don't want to lose muscle. I don't want anyone to lose muscle, because muscle is important for your day-to-day life. It's important for longevity. And it's important for me because one of my goals is actually to get stronger and to build more muscle fibers. And so I design my meal around protein first. Because when you have enough protein and you combine that with consistent resistance training, you're sending the signal to your body that this muscle is being used. We need this. So we're going to leave the muscles alone and we'll just go for the fat stores. And that's why it's possible for you to be in a deficit, but retain muscle. Now, I know you're wondering, how much protein do I actually need to eat? And the overwhelming majority, from the studies I've read, the experts I've talked to, the people that I know like me who have tested this, they know this calculation. And that is, you take 0.8 grams of protein and you multiply that by your goal body weight. And this calculation gives you your goal of protein intake per day. Now, 0.8 isn't a really easy calculation to make in our heads. So you'll often see people that say 0.1 grams of protein times their body weight. And there's certainly nothing wrong from anything that I read or anyone that I've talked to that has said that over-consuming protein in this way is a problem. Some people advocate it and they say, if you're trying to build muscle, that this is even better. But there certainly is a cutoff of more protein is not better. Your body at some point digests the protein and actually just turns it into energy, just like it will with a carb or a fat when you consume too much. So for most people, there's really no harmful effect if you overconsume protein. So as an example, my goal for this challenge is to get to 170 pounds. And I've done that in the past. I know that it's an achievable spot. And so I take 170, I multiply it by 0.8, and that gives me 136. So I need to consume 136 grams of protein throughout the day. Now, what do you do with your other macronutrients, your carbs and your fats? Well, a good starting point for a lot of people, and this is where I started, was to just split those calories up in half and spread them out through your meals. After trying this out for a few days, you'll know what you prefer. If you prefer to eat a little bit more carbs or a little less fats, whatever that may be, you'll start to know as you test this. There is a bottom threshold to the amount of fat that you should be eating, because even though we have gone through a diet culture where that has really demonized fat, fat is necessary for your body for hormone production. And so you can't cut fat out entirely if you want to be healthy on a metabolic level. Now, carbs have, of course, been demonized in many different ways throughout the years. And if you're someone who's familiar with keto, then you'll know that carbs are something that you can almost completely remove from your diet if you want. Carbs are just the most easy and efficient way to get glycogen into your system. This is the energy that your body uses. I mean, your brain and your muscles need glycogen to survive and to thrive. Okay, because I just mentioned keto, I want to talk about diets for just 1 second. Because I've experimented with many things over the years. I've experimented with keto and being a vegan. I've done carnivore, and I've tried things like intermittent fasting. I've done no carbs. There's so many different fad diets that have come along over the years, and they've actually all worked in terms of reducing the weight on the scale for me. And that's because just about every single one of them will put you in a calorie deficit for a particular reason. If you're intermittent fasting and you're only eating in a 7-hour window, well, for most people, you're just going to consume less energy because you've just removed a whole other time of the day when you normally may be taking in more energy. If you're going from a standard American diet and then you start going carnivore or keto, you start to eat protein and fat at a very high level compared to what you used to. Now, protein and fat are the two most satiating macronutrients. I remember when I went on keto and I ate as much fat as I did, I was so full the first day. It was hard for me to actually eat every meal that day. I was just so satiated and so full, I didn't actually want to consume more food. So I'm eating less calories. Therefore, I'm in an energy deficit, a calorie deficit, and I'm going to lose weight. Now, dropping carbs has a similar effect, but for a different reason. Carbohydrates actually help your body store water. Your muscles are actually made up of like 72, 75% water. And so if you go from eating normally and then you just decide to cut all carbs out, you're actually going to drop a lot of weight. It's essentially water weight because your body can no longer store the water in the muscles like it used to. This actually has a negative effect for a lot of people in the bodybuilding world and physique world, because what you're essentially doing is like taking the water out of a water balloon. Your muscles are going to look smaller because it just can't hold the water. So the weight on the scale may be quite lower, but all you've really done is just reduced the water in your body. And this is another example of how just following a program or a diet doesn't connect you actually with your body. It doesn't give you an understanding or a knowing of how you want to relate to your body to achieve your goals. And so while I'm in this process of putting myself in an energy deficit, I'm asking myself, how do I nourish my body? How do I give myself the best fuel, the most nourishing foods to make this body well while I'm also giving it less energy than it wants? And so I'm sticking to whole foods. I'm cooking mostly from home. And for my body, I realize that I work best when I prioritize plant-based protein and fish protein. And so through these 90 days, I really won't be eating any red meat, any chicken, or any pork. And dairy has never really been something that I digest well. So that's been out of my diet for a long time. But if you are curious about this and you want to try this process, the way that I'm doing it isn't the way that you will be doing it. And so if any of this has resonated with you, if any of this is making you curious about how you might be able to make a shift in the way that you relate to your body, I encourage you to test it, to try things out. And don't try too many things out at one time. Give yourself a lot of space, a lot of grace, because like any new skill, any new activity, you're going to try something and it might work, and then you might try something else and it might fail. So go easy on yourself and please enjoy the process. Okay, that's it for today, friends. Thanks for listening to this. If there are questions that you have, if anything that I shared with you is a little murky or unclear, please reach out on Instagram or on the YouTube channel comments, because I want to know if this is helpful or not. And I also want to know maybe what I missed or what your experience is and how things are different for you, because what you're going through is also what I'm going through, and maybe we can learn from each other. All right, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day and be well.